what should we do in the context of the specify and model requirements task as BAs? So when we talk about modeling of the requirements, creating the models for the solutions based on the requirements, that would potentially mean that we're trying to create charts, create matrices, tables, diagrams, grids, all kinds of mock-ups, sketches, everything. So those are going to be representational solution. They're not the solution. There is a big difference, but they're leading us into the solution based on these models and these prototypes, wireframes, pictures, videos, and everything else. The users and the customers and the stakeholders can get a better view of how the proposed solution would look like, how it could work like, how it would navigate, how you could interact with that. And so the feedback, you can get the feedback from the stakeholders using these models earlier than it was if it were not there. So in the context of, for example, with the agile mode nowadays, you can create a mock-up really quickly. There are a lot of tools out there. You can create actually a proper looking product, proper working product, like the typical website with all its homepage, inner page. Click on this and it will open another page. There's a link there. Click on that. There is a pop-up. So you can actually give the feel of as if they're really using the final product. So that sense of, but obviously that is not connected to the database. It's not really the final product, but still it is representative of the final product. And so you can, using these models, you can try and understand what is the gap, what we're trying to miss here, what is it that is not working in this one? Is there something wrong with the navigation? Are they getting stuck somewhere? Is there some problem with the layout of the screen? Are the set of colors and the fonts used, are they too vibrant, and are they really too shouting? Should we tone them down? So all this feedback, what is important, what is not important, all of that could be gathered from using these models. And then they represent the requirements or attributes because of the fact that each of these is, as I said, representation of the solution. It's not the solution, but actually kind of is a proxy. It's leading you to the solution. So you get a lot of those different characteristics, which are both functional as well as non-functional, like performance, security, scalability, reliability, all those qualities of the actual solution. You can try and get a feel of that with these models, with the prototypes in place. And you can try and implement the appropriate levels of abstraction, because that's very important. The abstraction here is actually trying to take the complexity out of the solution and then trying to make it as simple as possible for the end users and the customers to have a go. And for that, what you need to do is to just remove all the complexity, remove the underlying. It's pretty much like when you drive a car as a driver, you're not really worried about how does the ignition work. Is there a spark plug there? How does it consume the petrol, and where does it get the petrol? How often does the piston really get into the picture? What is the frequency and all those things? That's not required, because that's something which is hidden under the carpet. That's what it's in the boot, right? They say that you need to keep it under the hood and focus on what is important for you as a driver. But when you're working as a mechanic, or when you're trying to look at it to fix the problem, then you would need to open the hood and look at all the stuff that we were talking about, the carburetors and the radiators and the engines and everything else. So that you require a different level of knowledge, which is detailed enough, which is actually the components, the knowledge of the components of the car, how does it work? So when we talk about the driver and then the car being a product being used by driver, which is a normal set of users, then you need to abstract the whole lot of complexity into out of the equation and just try and focus on the driving experience, the interiors, how is it smooth, how are the gear shifting, all of these things, the overall driving experience of being in the car, or even the passenger sitting in the car and getting the comfort of not getting the bumps and everything, right? So that's what I'm talking about, abstraction. You're removing unnecessary complexity out of the whole thing and just focusing on what the target audience or the users really need to know and need to do. That's what is important. Again, the same with the models and prototypes as well. You don't really get into all the nitty-gritties of how the solution would work and what is the code behind and everything. That's not important for us to do with the model. What is important at this stage with the prototypes is just enough detail, just so that that's in terms of design, interaction, content, functionality, presentation, navigation, and the overall experience of how you can actually use this product. That's what is important during the modeling of the requirements. So as we discussed, what does a model requirement really mean? So it's basically prototyping the requirement or creating a proxy solution. It's a descriptive and visual way of representing information for a specific set of users. So it's not for everyone, but for a specific set of user profiles. And then we are keeping these target users in our mind when we try and create this. It may not be the final finished product. It is actually one subset of the entire set of functionality and the features and the non-functional perspectives that you get from the final product. Just one strand of that. It need not be everything. And why would you need the models? You need to help understand the various aspects of how you would use this product. What are the contexts in which you would use the product? What are the use cases that you would use this product for? What drives this usage? How does it get used? What is the messaging involved? What are the different kinds of communication channels? And also to understand the overall set of requirements in that context. You're trying to give a context to the requirements. That's what is the model and the prototypes really helping you as a business analyst. So why do you need to use the model? Again, it really is very helpful to confirm your knowledge, whatever you understood from the elicitation exercises and working with the stakeholders. You want to reconfirm, you want to kind of reaffirm whether you've got the right understanding. And then if it is the case, then how would you propose to create the solution based on that understanding? And obviously it's helpful to find any gaps that you have identified, anything that is missing, anything that is not being explicitly mentioned by the stakeholders, or something that has gone missing during your analysis. You'll be able to find it during the modeling, or even when the model is shown to the or being used by the end users. And you can also try and understand if there's any duplication of information, anything that is really repeated, anything that is not required. You can try and identify all of those aspects and can take measures to remove those omissions and commissions, as what we say. So in terms of the overall usage of the model, they would help you establish unambiguous communication. Very important, because when what you see is what you get. When you say WYSIWYG, that WYSIWYG is the WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. So there's no communication gap. Effectively, you're seeing is believing, as I say. When you see something, when you can actually play around with that, when you use it, you can try and get that experience of how it would really work. And pretty much the same concept in the latest context of mobile applications or apps that we have now is about doing things. It's not just about seeing. So that's why it is called widget. Widget is what I do is what I get. So it's not just about seeing things, but it's also about doing things. So you're clicking on something, you're trying to go to some other place, you're trying to enter some information, it pops up with some data that is helpful for you. So it's all about the journey from the WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, to widget, what I do is what I get. So essentially, it is also about balancing with doing things and clicking on things and seeing the whole dynamic aspect of it. So you can raise questions, you can try and answer the questions raised by the users. Some of the time they're not really clear. They might ask you, oh, where should I click? What is this here? Where's the search button here? So they're not really clear with the presentation. It's a good place for them to try and raise those questions or get answers and clarifications from us. And it's also useful for validating for consistency and completeness. So you started off with one step, and then now you've got about half the way into the product development. You would like to reaffirm, you want to understand whether you've got everything intact in terms of the experience, the colors you use, the fonts, the placement of logos, and the overall experience that you're driving through the product. Is it consistent with the initial vision that you have? So you would like to validate that. And then you would also be able to define the business rules with the model. So you can actually kind of set some validations or things which you say, don't go. For example, when you want to test the ATM card concept or the debit card using being used in a cash machine, kind of a scenario, then you're trying to restrict some of the scenarios of usage with, for example, if they enter the pin code 3 times incorrect, then you say, go on, what will happen? Let's see. And then they entered the 4th time incorrectly, and then that would stop them from transacting any longer. So essentially what you're trying to do is to replicate what could be the potential error scenarios, right? And then that would help you to understand in future, in reality, when the rubber hits the road, when the product really gets into the hands of the users, what are all the ways that they can potentially use this product in unexpected ways then, or rather what we call as abnormal ways, or things which we have not expected them to behave. Those behaviors, you can try and simulate those during the model usage, and that helps with the clarification of understanding where we are heading and how that gets really used in the context of the real usage by the end users. So very important there. And then there are different formats and different styles and different outputs and outcomes when it comes to modeling. It's not one size fits all. Some people prefer to use matrix kind of a representation, charts, graphs, pictures, videos, whatever you would like to use. It's your comfort level, it's your convenience, and what you're expecting out to get out of that. So for example, matrix and the tables and the grids and all those charts and graphs, they're used when a set of requirements having complex but uniform structure, because you've got, it's complex, but you're trying to have some kind of uniformity. There's a structure, there's a method to the madness. An example for this is basically some of the model that we create for financial problem solving. So we create Excel models, and we try and replicate this or simulate these model scenarios with some kind of formulas and calculations and things like that to reflect how that would behave in reality. So that for that purpose, most of the analysts are comfortable with creating the models in Excel spreadsheets, which is basically like a matrix. Some other way of looking at it is basically a pictorial way. So you can create a wireframe in terms of a look and feel to get a feel of how that would look like. So potentially you'll create some kind of boxes and arrows, just some rough outlines in black and white. I do that a lot using OmniGraffle, a lot of sketches, and then there are loads of tools like that. You've got Balsamic for the lower end to the higher end OmniGraffles. You've got Visio in the center, rows. A lot of those kind of things could be used to come up with the rough wireframes of how that would look like. So again, that's very useful, and there's no one size fits all. You can, in fact, you can create your own on the paper. That's what we call as a paper prototype. You can just draw on the paper, rough paper, and then you can also try and use iPad. Nowadays you've got iPads which you can use some of the tools on iPad, like Procreate, which is an app that you could use on iPad. You can use OneNote and kind of those kind of note making things where you can just draw some rough sketches, use the boxes, draw with the Apple Pencil or the stylus, and then connect these different types of images and the text and charts and graphs, all of them in one kind of flow. You've also got mind maps. You can use all of these different kind of modeling tools to be able to connect these different dots and make some meaningful insights, trying to get some meaningful insights out of that different structured ways of documentation. Maybe used for requirement traceability. Again, we can use these for traceability of requirements. We can try and say this is where it is connected to, this is what the relationship, the entity relationships. We can also try and look at the diagrams as a way to represent the complexity in terms of the visual connection, in terms of how each of these is interconnected with others and how it's contained in a different unit, and then that is connected to a different unit. So there's a bit of all that kind of complexity involved. We can try and abstract that with a picture. So that picture, a set of pictures, would be the best means to communicate the complexity, rather than writing like hundreds and 200s of pages of documents in the form of requirement specification. So modeling, I really use it a lot, and I insist on my all my BAs to be comfortable with picking up whichever version. There's no one size fits all, obviously. Depending on your comfort level and your experience, you can pick and choose which type of model you would like to use. And then when it comes to the, once you've got that, models in place, once you've got that kind of understanding, then you start diving deeper and delving deeper and deeper in terms of the requirements. What is it that they really need? What are the real problem statements, real problem definitions? Who is really getting benefited from our solution? How do they use it? What is the context of usage? All of these must be, tried, must be understood well by the business analyst.